Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today, we've got a special guest with us. Matt Montgomery from Footballguys is back. We're going to be talking about some Dynasty trade targets for rebuilding and contending teams.
Hike!
All right, Matt, so why don't you start us off? Who do you got as your first, or each of us are going to share one, I should say. Let me talk about that from the top of the show here. So who is your contending target?
All right. So when I'm thinking of a contender, I got to have something that's going to put me over the top, okay? You can't go after these mid-tier guys that are going to make you the same. So I am big game hunting with Amon-Ra St. Brown, the wide receiver for the Detroit Lions. And I know that we're getting some weird vibes on the internet about how people value him and view him currently. And that is precisely why I am trying to buy him, because I believe you're probably going to get the lowest buy window we've had for him in the last year or so, because over the course of the last 3 to 4 weeks, he's not been this wow player. But I think that we're undervaluing how consistent he is as a wide receiver one. And I do believe he is still a high quality wide receiver one. Every year we try to anoint the next dynasty guy who's going to take over the wide receiver one. And when you add a new rookie, you have to bump some guys down. And I'm starting to see people bump Amon-Ra St. Brown down, but I have a big feeling of trying to get players on good teams. Okay. So regardless of who, I want players on good teams. And I believe that Amon-Ra St. Brown is a good player on a good team. He's always going to be the number one target there. Sam Laporta kind of scared me a little bit last year with that, but I think we're seeing the kind of what we're going to get from Sam Laporta, and that's he's just going to be a very dynamic tight end, but he's not going to dominate the target share. And I think with Jameson Williams being able to go over the top for this offense, Amon-Ra St. Brown is always going to have consistent targets. And when you're trying to buy somebody on a contending team, he can't be a player that's going to lose you a week. He has to be a player that is going to at least set the floor for you. And if you know that the floor is 8 or 9 points, you can build around that, because he does have these huge boom 20, 30-point weeks every now and again. So on a contending team, I'm buying Amon-Ra St. Brown because he is consistent. He's on a good team. It's a buy low opportunity, and the target share is always going to be there.
It's interesting when it comes to Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't know about you, Joe, but it's he's almost like a quiet high scorer, right? Like, because it doesn't, like you said, man, he's had some real boom weeks, but otherwise, I'd say like on a week-to-week basis, you're like, it kind of looks disappointing. But then you look and he's a top 5 wide receiver. So it's kind of interesting because Laporta's not as good this year. He's regressed like a lot of people thought. And then Jameson Williams has kind of ascended. But it's like, I don't know, it's interesting because you're kind of right. Amon-Ra St. Brown's value hasn't really, I mean, it stays the same, but people are feeling a little bit different. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with like what you said, Matt. Like he's got those boom weeks, but then he's also kind of just got those weeks where he does just give you a solid like 8 or 9 points. But he's always been an underrated player up until like last year where he really burst onto the scene. I know I was always interested in him and high on him, but other people he's not one of those big flashy players. I think that's why he does a lot of the dirty work, and he's just willing to really play football, and that's why I can really appreciate the way he plays.
I don't know if you guys ever watched the wide receiver thing on Netflix.
I did,
but I thought it was a really cool view of him as a person. He's a highly intelligent guy. And it's always funny to me that you'll see some of these top players in the league. They're extremely intelligent people. And I think that, to me, shows more of an IQ for the game as well. Like, they think the game differently. They don't just go, hey, I have to run 5 yards and then I have to hit a post route, or 5 yards and I'm going to slant. They're thinking and they're reading and reacting to what the defense gives them. And I think that he's the perfect example of that. Kind of like what you said, he does the dirty work. He isn't a robot. He's going to see what the defense is giving him, and he's going to take it. And I think that that's why the consistency is kind of always there with him.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, he is tied for second in the league for 9 touchdowns. So, he's obviously getting those looks. Yeah. So, I mean, and Jared Goff definitely looks his way. And Laporta isn't getting as many touchdowns, so maybe it's Amon-Ra St. Brown's time. So at the end of the day, I mean, I definitely can see it. If you look at their schedule, they've got the Bills next week, at Chicago, at San Fran. Not the best of matchups, but you're going with the primetime player.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, he wants the guys on the good teams, and Hey, Detroit Lions are a heck of a football team.
Yes, they are, man. Yes, they
Well,
are.
and the benefit too is, hey, if you don't win your championship, you've got Amon-Ra St. Brown for your dynasty. So,
Yeah.
Right.
who wouldn't want that?
Yeah, he's still 25 years old. I mean, we're probably right now starting to scrape the surface of what his prime is. I don't think he's fully in it. I think that this is going to work. This next 2 to 3 years, we're going to see who he is as a peak receiver in the NFL, and I'm buying that now while I can, especially in the dip.
All right, Joe. So, who is your dynasty trade target for contending teams?
Yeah, the player I'm going to go with is running back James Conner of the Arizona Cardinals, and this had a lot to do with the upcoming schedule. If you look at the strength of schedule, they've got the second best for the running back position. This week they get the New England Patriots. Next week, the Carolina Panthers, who are currently listed as the worst defense against the run. Then after that, you get the Rams, who's kind of middle of the pecking order, and then San Fran, if you play in week 18. I know most people, ended over on week 17. But I think just from a dynasty perspective too, like the fact that the Cardinals gave him that extension, he's at least going to be back for 2025. I know he's going to be a 30-year-old running back potentially next year for the dynasties, but I think he's a guy who could help you win your championship next year. And at least you got some play with the Cardinals next year, with that offense and Kyler Murray. And just the last couple of weeks, he's gotten 35, carries along with, 3 receptions, week 13 against the Minnesota Vikings, 4 more receptions last week in Seattle with a receiving touchdown as well. And he's been averaging, 4 and 5 yards per carry over the last 2 weeks. Especially it was impressive the week before against the Vikings, who have a pretty good run defense as well.
Are you concerned at all about the Panthers? Because they're getting a little bit more stingy these days. I know right now it shows that they're the worst, but I don't know if you've been watching them lately, but they've been fierce.
I have. Oh, I've been watching them. I mean, they've been sticking with these teams. I mean, yeah, they are
Eagles and Chiefs. I mean, those you could argue 2 of the top 5 teams in the league.
Yeah. No, they've been playing better defensively. No doubt about it. It is little. I mean, the metrics are what they are right now. I mean, it is a little bit concerning, but like I said, the fact that he was able to, the Vikings are grading out as one of the top ones too, and he still got it's still got enough touches and 4 yards per carry. So I still think he could get it done.
What say you, Matthew? You like that trade target?
I like James Conner. Yeah, I bought him last season, mid-season last season as a deadline guy, and it's been pretty good. You're gonna hear a recurring theme from me on this, but if I'm contending, I'm not looking for boom bust players. I'm looking for consistency with an ability to boom. If that makes any sense. Like I'm perfectly okay with a boring guy on my team as long as that boring guy is getting, like you said, 4 or 5 yards of carry. He's getting opportunities inside the red zone. That's big for running backs. I know everybody loves the running back that can take it 70 yards. But a lot of times you'll see some of these teams, like I think Jahmyr Gibbs for a while, or even actually back in the Jamal Williams days with the Detroit Lions, where they would get inside the 5-yard line and it was just Jamal Williams time. He is going to take the ball in the end zone. So boring players like that who are going to get the targets in crucial moments and are going to get the opportunities as well, that is the type of player who I think you need to buy. And I think James Conner fits that pretty good. And another point to that, Trey Benson scares me a little bit for the long term with James Conner, but I think that they are just 2 different players. And I think 2 different players are going to be managed differently by the Arizona Cardinals. I think they're going to have they're going to be games where Trey Benson's going to get the majority of the work, but that doesn't mean that James Conner isn't going to be a part of the offense. And I think we a lot of times see that handcuff running back and we go, okay, James Conner's going to be done in a year because this guy's going to take his job. But James Conner has been an effective NFL running back for quite a while. And I don't think that 1 year from a rookie or a second-year player, I guess at that point, is going to just eliminate all that James Conner has done in his career.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, man. I think honestly, in reflection, that's one of the things I learned this season. I think I put I don't have to think. I know. I put way too much stock in the rookie running back being drafted. I thought Blake Corum possibly, him being drafted with Kyren Williams. I just didn't think he'd stay healthy, which he has been able to. So kudos to him. But when it came to Trey Benson, I thought that Trey Benson was going to be the guy. I thought that James Conner was going to get phased out of the offense because of them selecting, because he was one of the guys all around. I thought he was a really good back. So I think we got to be careful about that. I think if they're an elite running back, maybe like a Bijan or a Gibbs, maybe
Yeah.
those type of players. They're gonna have a more prominent role. They could have a bigger impact. I think honestly, too often in the fantasy football community, we get kind of this like craze of running backs. It's like running backs galore, and we want to be so excited, and they're gonna do amazing things, and they may. But I got caught up on the hype train on that one, and so I think going forward, I have to take a pause. It's like, do I really think that this running back is really going to just take over? I thought Tank Bigsby was going to do that with ETN, but then what do you know? Now it actually did happen in year 2, and but Travis Etienne hasn't been healthy either. So
always remember, it's not about being wrong; it's about being early.
That's an interesting take. That's an interesting take. But ultimately, if you're early, you could be wrong. Because I was wrong about those other guys. But hey, if you're early and eventually it turns out, then you could be the guy that said, hey, I told you so.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with taking victory laps and then rescinding the victory lap if it's wrong.
I'd rather be early than too late, though, Steve.
Yeah.
That's right. That's true. So, guys, my trade target for contending teams is going to be wide receiver Terry McLaurin, a guy who I was interested in at the beginning of the season. I thought that he could be in for a career year. He has been in quarterback purgatory for the longest time, hasn't had a good quarterback to work with. Didn't know what Jayden Daniels, was going to be like in the NFL, but just the potential got me excited. Well, what do you know? I was early on that one, and it paid off. Terry McLaurin has done really, really well this season. 9 touchdowns. And he's got a decent schedule the rest of the way here at New Orleans, then Philly, which isn't the best matchup, but then Atlanta on your championship game. So what's kind of interesting about Terry McLaurin is I was shocked by this. I don't know about if this will shock you guys. He's 29 years old. I just thought this guy was recently in the league. He hasn't been in the league for all that long, but the thing is that when he came in, he wasn't all that young. So it just goes to show, because he's only been in the NFL for, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons. So it's interesting. He just was a later age rookie. And usually around that 31, 32-year-old mark, things start to fall off the tracks here. And he'll be 30 years old in September. So he's a guy who I think, as a contending team, if the other owner is a rebuilding team and has him, I think you could easily get him, number one. And number two, looking at trade value charts, you're looking at about a first-round pick. I think that's appropriate, because think about this. If you trade that first-round pick, you win your championship, you're a late-round first anyways. You're basically at the bottom of the first round, more than likely, if you win or if you're close. So to me, I think I like Terry McLaurin as an option here, guys.
Yeah, I like it too. I mean, him and Jayden Daniels definitely seem to have a rapport, and it's just been building over the course of the season. He's getting the deep shots, and there's not too many other guys right now to take the targets away from him. So he's kind of the one-man show. I know lately, they've been trying to feel like De'Ami Brown involved, but then they also have Noah Brown too. But it's still the Terry McLaurin show there. Zach Ertz might score a touchdown or two, here and there. But yeah, I like Terry McLaurin, and I think he's the guy that obviously will still have future value with Jayden Daniels.
De'Ami Brown, Noah Brown, Charlie Brown, it does not matter. Scary Terry is the guy there, and I think he's going to continue to be. You were talking about the Carolina Panthers earlier and how they're stingy. Isn't it amazing what happens to an NFL team when the quarterback starts playing really well? Jayden Daniels has changed the entire – and I do think ownership, I think that's a secondary story that we could go on and on for days about, but the wholesale changes that the Washington Commanders have made not only have made this team more entertaining, but we are seeing fantasy prospects from people that we kind of all wrote off for dead. I mean, even Eckler had a few weeks that was kind of like, oh, is he potentially turning back the clock? But unfortunately, no. Father Time always wins. And Scary Terry being 29 years old actually kind of shocked me too. I didn't realize that either. But I don't believe it's going to affect his value at any given time, because we're seeing him peak right now, I think. So like you said, the dynasty chart, the trade chart, that is, the first round value. I've always had this thought when I'm trying to trade draft picks, if I drafted this player with this pick, would I be happy? And if I spent a first round pick and I got Terry McLaurin production, I would be pretty thrilled. especially if I was on a contending team like this and I added a wide receiver 1 like that for that pick. Yeah, my goal was not to draft early in the first round. My goal is to win this Super Bowl, and then you'd be mad that you traded it and got the last pick in the first round anyway. So, yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Are you enjoying this episode so far? Well, if you are, subscribe to our YouTube channel, smash that like button, and hit the notification bell for upcoming videos. We do videos throughout the year, so you're not going to want to miss what we have in store. So transitioning over to the rebuilding side, guys, we're going to be each providing a rebuilding trade target. So, Matt, who's yours?
All right. I've been on this dude for a while, and it's another example of maybe early as opposed to wrong. Jakobi Meyers. I think, believe it or not, this is going to sound ridiculous saying it out loud, and I might want to take it back after I say it, but is he quarterback proof? I don't understand. This guy always seems to score points. He always has a bulk of the targets. I mean, he's averaging just under 10 targets a game. That is insane, okay? There are not many receivers that do that. So if you're getting that type of target volume, you should automatically be talked about as a wide receiver 1. And then he has the production to match it. He's the only quality wide receiver that they have there. Brock Bowers is a tight end. He is obviously the number 1 target there. I love Jakobi Meyers, but Brock Bowers seems to be a generational talent, like true to the name. We always throw that word out there, but Brock Bowers is 100% proving that, yeah, he's just the best of that class right now. I don't think it's that close currently. Now, Malik Neighbors is in quarterback purgatory. We could go on about that. But the reality is Jakobi Meyers has a high-level teammate that is going to require attention. And because he's going to require attention for Brock Bowers, he's going to get a little bit more opportunities. They're not going to be able to just throw 2 or 3 defenders on him or bracket coverage. He is going to have more opportunities. And we're seeing that he's another guy that is rarely going to lose the week. He has a consistent floor. And like I said earlier, when I'm targeting guys, I want to build a foundation on my team, especially if I am rebuilding. Jakobi Meyers is another one of those guys who's a little bit older than you think, but I do believe that he is not going to fetch this incredible amount of capital to get on your team, because they're going to look at him and they're going to see he plays for the Raiders. And they're going to be like, I don't really want him anyway. This is probably the best he's ever going to do. So they're going to try to sell him off. You may be buying a little bit higher than you're comfortable with, but I do believe the return that you can get for him is going to be worth whatever you have to give up. Because like I said, it's an ugly player on an ugly team, and people are going to be like, I just don't really care to have him on my roster. I don't think people value him like he should be valued.
So I hate to burst the bubble, but I'm going to disagree on this one. I think when it comes down to Jakobi Meyers, I know, someone's got to do it. At the end of the day, here's my concern, Matt. You got Jakobi Meyers right now. He has 2 years left on his deal. So in 2025, he'll have 1 year left. If the Raiders decide to do a post-June 1 cut, which who knows, right? We don't even know what's going to happen. The Raiders have been very underwhelming this year. They were thinking that, the interim head coach, Antonio Pierce, coming in, he might be able to keep this momentum that he had last year. And bring in a big Tom Telesco, I believe, the former GM of the Chargers, to really try to figure things out. So Mark Davis sometimes as he changes things pretty quickly. So I could very much see them cleaning house. I could really see that happening. If they clean house, you're looking at a possible regime change. And if you do a post-June 1st cut on Jakobi Meyers, the team saves $11 million in cap space.
Ooh.
So to me, the thought is that now if it's a pre-June 1st cut, they don't do it. They only save $6 million. So, it depends on, I don't know their cap space, and I could look into it more, but I'm just saying it's a possibility. So if he gets cut, where does he go as a free agent? Now you're saying you believe he's quarterback proof. I don't know. It could be, and you might be right about this, but as a rebuilding team, I'm hoping that maybe my team is there 2 to 3 years down the road. And right now, you're looking at Jakobi Meyers. He is I think he's 20. What's his
28,
name?
29.
28. Yeah, he's 28, and he'll be 29. He turned 28 on November 9th, so he will be 28 heading into the next season. So I think there are a lot. I don't think it's a sure thing he's on the Raiders, and if he's not on the Raiders, then where does he go? He's never been a big touchdown getter. So I don't know. I have my doubts. Joe, you're the tiebreaker. What do you think?
Come on, Joe.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, Matt, your argument was definitely compelling, and I think Jakobi Meyers. He's an interesting name. He's kind of not a lot of guys talk about him. I feel like people just kind of write him off. He's just because he had, like you said, he had quarterback issues with the New England Patriots. Nobody was really excited about him, and then he'd put up the yards, but then couldn't get in the end zone. Then he goes to the Raiders, and honestly, he's done pretty good with the amount of lackluster quarterbacks that he's played with. So Steve, I guess my question to you is it the worst thing if he does move off of the Raiders? I know they're potentially got to get an upgrade at the quarterback position.
My turn. That's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, what if he goes to an offense that actually has a quarterback and actually can execute some passing offense, and it's not
Raiders
just
take Shadur Sanders.
Yeah, it's a possibility. I just think I guess is it a quick rebuild or is it a longer term rebuild? If it's a longer term rebuild, I'm not interested. If you're in the long term market for a rebuild, you ain't winning fantasy, brother.
So
you're the mindset of you're always trying to win now. You're not looking 2-3 years down the road.
Yeah, I mean, I understand tanking or whatever you want to call it. I understand that where if you have a generational prospect and you understand that your team can't win, but you're setting as competitive of a lineup as you can. I agree with that. It's not how I play, though. I'm very much a chips in the middle kind of guy. Because I do believe that you win championships by being as in the middle as you can be, okay? I am not on the outskirts. I could care less how pretty or how ugly my lineup is. If it's beating yours, I've done my job. And that's kind of what I think with Jakobi Meyers. You can buy him cheap. He's going to be a player you can plug in immediately, and I believe he'll get production. And whether it's 1 year or 2 years, like I said, I'm not in the long-term business. If he can hold me over until I get that generational guy that I draft or whatever, then he's done the job.
Yeah, I like it, man. I'm with you. I'm
Oh,
never
boy.
in long. I'm an aggressive guy. Steve knows fantasies. I'm all in, man. Like I either want to be competing for a championship or just suck. I don't want the in between. I'm not a middle guy, so I'm all in.
You don't want to be the guy that takes the linebacker in the first round because all the good offensive players are gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially if that linebacker is Isaiah Simmons, but that's another day. So Joe, who is your trade target for rebuilding teams?
Yeah, I'm going to go a little bit younger, but still at the wide receiver position, and I'm going to go with Rashee Rice. And thought process around this is, I think there could be some owners out there that are concerned. One, he's coming off of the injury. Two, he's probably going to serve some sort of a suspension next year from all the offseason things that happened. Knew it wouldn't happen in 2024 here, but most likely he's going to get some sort of suspension in 2025. He's going to be 25 years old, and I just think, he'll be a good asset for you for your rebuilding team. And honestly, I was really excited about Rashee Rice. Steve knows this, and for the 3 games that he did play, I mean, it was kind of just like proof in the pudding. I mean, this Kansas City Chiefs offense was running through Pacheco and Rashee Rice just how I thought it would. And, once he gets healthy and comes back from suspension, if he, has to serve one, I think they're just going to be right back at it because they just don't have any other pieces to really put the ball to. And Travis Kelce, I mean, you see he's not getting any younger. They're kind of he's even underutilized. Feel like they're just saving him up for the playoffs or a potential 3rd Super Bowl here.
Do you think though the suspension or the PCL does that concern you? I think that there is an opportunity to get him because there are some question marks surrounding him. So it's not like go get Justin Jefferson or something. It's like, okay, good luck, right? I think there's some opportunity to get Rashee Rice. I guess, looking as far as trade value charts that I'm seeing, I'm looking at one here.
I think it'd be like maybe like a mid first or late first or something, Or,
you think that's enough?
Or, that in a player,
in our league, you had to trade a first and a second and Ramondre Stevenson and I think there was some other player too.
You did that? That's an actual trade?
Not me. No, actual trade.
In our league.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll look it up, Joe. You talk while I look it up.
Heck, I'd be willing to do that. I've never liked Ramondre Stevenson. And then the first and the second, the picks are a little bit tougher, but I think in this draft class, especially if it's next year's picks, there's not that many exciting wide receivers. So kind of like to what you were saying, Matt, if you use your first round pick and you're getting Rashee Rice's production, I don't think you're going to miss it.
So it was
Absolutely.
so the first, second, Ramondre Stevenson and Sam Hubbard, defensive end Sam Hubbard. So it's the IDP league as well. For Rashee Rice, Aaron Jones, and 2 fourths.
Damn. Okay. That's not, I mean, it's not as egregious as I thought it was at first. It's not great. I don't know if I would pull the trigger as the Rashee Rice or the guy buying Rashee Rice. It seems like you're giving up more than you're receiving, especially now. I mean, obviously, hindsight, we all can do the same thing. The one thing that worries me about Rashee Rice is when you see a player that makes questionable off-field decisions, I always am nervous what's going to happen when you get the bag. Because I don't think that money does anything but make you more of who you are. And if you're already somebody who's making bad decisions in the short term when you're proving yourself, then what are you going to do when you're a proven asset? And I think we've seen Rashee Rice, when he's on the field, he is absolutely an incredible player to watch. He's got the best quarterback, arguably, of all time, throwing him the ball with arguably the best play caller who is going to scheme him open, and they have credible people around him. So Rashee Rice is always going to have that value. I'm worried about the stuff that's not on the football field, interrupting his development and interrupting potentially fantasy seasons. And we've already seen it. He's a very promising talent, but he's made a bad decision, and then he left the scene of – I mean, it's basic stuff, man. And maybe that was the counsel he was given to leave. You know, obviously I'm not privy to that type of information, but I do believe that when you compound bad decisions – Roger Goodell, I mean, he will lay the heavy hand. I mean, he does not play around. It does not matter who you are in most cases, unless you're the Patriots for the last 20 years prior to this. But I just feel like that's the only thing that makes me nervous about leveraging the future like that trade and giving up all of that for a player like that. I would be nervous about it. But like you just said, if I'm getting that production for that pick, yeah, absolutely. It's a slam dunk. I just am a little nervous about him as a person, and maybe that's not fair.
I think at the end of the day, for me, I think if you're a gambler, it's high upside, but you could lose your shirt. That's my concern with him. So for me, I would rather have Garrett Wilson, who's a very similar value, and I'm not losing my shirt. More than likely, I feel much more. It's a safer bet to me than Rashee Rice
What if Garrett Wilson gets traded, though?
I was going to bring that up, too. I saw that.
That's even better. That's probably even better then, because the Jets are a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
Why didn't you say that about Jakobi Meyers?
Well, okay. If Garrett Wilson goes to the Raiders, we got problems. So,
yeah, I mean, hey, they're going to clear 11 million. You said post-June cut for Jakobi Meyers. Garrett Wilson.
I'm actually really impressed with that counterpoint. That's knowing that information now, I don't know if I'd throw him on the show sheet here, because that's a good deal. I mean, what are the Raiders? What are they going to try to build? You know what I mean? Like, if you can save as much money and go like, all right, we're going to make a big splash. We're going to bring over Prime and his son, and then we're going to have a huge weapon over here. I mean, that sounds like a Vegas thing to do. So, I mean, you've talked me out of my own point, I feel like.
Oh, boy. Well, hopefully you don't talk me out of my point, but maybe you will. So my trade target for rebuilding teams, and I'll be honest, he's a guy that I was super excited about, and I'm kind of getting a little bit on the skids here. That's wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr., the guy who was deemed a generational prospect, the number one guy. It was a mile away between him and Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze, although all three were considered, elite prospects. Obviously, Marvin Harrison did not have the year that we all expected, especially given the fact that Kyler Murray, was able to do so much with Hopkins. I think it was just assumed, as I was assumed, that it was just going to be natural. And it really hasn't been natural. They've been not on the same page the entire year. I don't know why that's happening. I know there have been some kind of speculating and kind of some commentary back and forth on X about what that could be. But it's really interesting because this is a window of opportunity. I don't know whether you should take it or not. I'm advising you do. In my opinion, you're counting on the generational talent. His value right now, based on this, you're looking at a first-round pick to get him. But other players that you're looking at guys like Drake London that's ahead of him. To me, I would much rather have Marvin Harrison than Drake London. Drake London, we don't know what Michael Penix is going to be, and Kirk Cousins has been a disaster. So there are some players up there. I'm actually surprised. Based on the trade value chart I'm looking at right now, you're looking at like a 36-point difference compared for Neighbors to Harrison. I think that's pretty high. I don't know if it's that high. I think the gap is a lot closer than what it's being
It's about 3 points a
advertised.
week, give or take, a little over 3 points a week.
Yeah, so I don't know what you guys' thoughts are, but to me, I think this is a window of opportunity. You could get burned, but if you thought this guy was a generational prospect before, this might be the one time that you could buy him and actually get him. Because once he actually becomes the Maserati Marv that we've come to know, there's no looking back.
I hate that nickname, Steve.
Are you an Ohio State guy?
No, I'm not. But
well, you picked 2 Ohio State receivers, man.
Okay, yeah. I guess I didn't think about that.
Look, I like Marvin Harrison quite a bit. I understand why people are upset. I think we were talking about this earlier about Trey Benson, but I think we get so bored in the offseason that all we talk about are the potential ceilings. It's not fun to talk about the potential floors that these players have. You have to talk about how great they're going to be and Hall of Fame father, throwing Peyton Manning. I do think it's a bit unfair to compare him to a fully developed DeAndre Hopkins when it's his first year in the NFL. And I do believe that he played at Ohio State, so he played against pretty good talent. But the talent difference from college to the pros is exponential. And I don't think that we always, I think we expect a Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase when we talk about guys like this. And we just see, as the further away we get from those two, the further we see they're outliers. And they're outliers because they can take on NFL defenses from day one. I think that other people are just going to take a little bit of time. That doesn't mean they're bad players. We're talking about Terry McLaurin, Jakobi Meyers already. How many years did it take for Terry McLaurin to look like he does now? We were just talking about it with 6 years in the league, and he looks absolutely like a league winner. I don't believe it's going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. 6 years. I think it started rocky with the whole not signing his contract and not even signing like licensing for Madden. I don't know what all that was. I think that there might have been a preseason distraction. And when you start having things like that, you start holding out and you miss installs. Number one, that's not a good look for your coaches. And it wouldn't shock me if the alpha male egos of the NFL were just like, you know what, buddy, we're going to humble you for a little bit. We're going to pull the reins back a little bit. You're not going to be this star guy that everybody expects you to be. At the same time, I love Kyler Murray. I think he's a great quarterback. I don't always think that he is the pocket passer who could look over top of NFL offensive linemen and just fire the ball. I think he's a lot of off script stuff. And I don't think that Marvin Harrison's game right now has developed enough chemistry with him to continue getting open when Kyler's doing that whole toddler running with the phone type of thing. You know what I mean? Like he's an ad-libber. And I think that that's what his talent is. That's why Trey McBride is so valuable to that offense. I think Trey McBride is kind of, he's kind of a target hog in that regard because Harrison's going to be doing his work deep down the field. We know that Trey McBride is going to be, 5 to 15 yards down the field, somewhere in there. He's not going to be 20 yards downfield. And I do believe that Michael Wilson and Marvin Harrison Jr. are kind of doing that next layer. And because of that, he's not getting as many point opportunities as you would like on plays like that. So I agree. I'm also a little bummed about it because I am from Ohio, so I'm an Ohio State guy. I like Ohio State. I like watching the but I'm not quick enough to be like, hey, I'm going to sell him off. I'm done with him. He's not Malik Neighbors. He's not Roma Dunze or whatever the heck you want to compare him to. But I do think that he would be the perfect person to try to buy low right now because I do think that there are probably managers that didn't perform as well this season that probably have him on the team like, what the hell is this guy? If I can get another pick here and there and just move on. But I do think it takes more than a first-round pick. I don't think you just get him 1 for 1.
Yeah, ironically enough, Steve, I almost thought about doing Marvin Harrison myself here as my choice. But, I think this would be a good time to buy. I think he is disappointing, just like, Matthew was saying, just the buzz around these guys and come draft time. And just he was supposed to be this, already generational player, is like you mentioned, dad being in the Hall of Famer. He was supposed to be that crisp route runner. And I honestly thought Kyler Murray would be better at figuring out how to get him the ball, but whatever it is, just their chemistry's off. Not sure what's that. Just I thought there would be just more of him, Kyler Murray, just chucking it down the field to him and letting him to get those jump balls like he was to DeAndre Hopkins. But obviously that just hasn't been the case.
So that does it for this episode. We talked about some dynasty trade targets for contending and rebuilding teams. Matt, thanks so much for joining the show today. Where can others find your great work?
So I work and write for Footballguys.com. I write a weekly IDP Dynasty stock market that'll be going through week 17. So if you're in the playoffs or you're looking for some early stuff for next season, I'm trying to sprinkle in a little bit of some more Dynasty talk in that, because I know that the season is over for some. About 50% of people that play, right? Or the season's over. So we're going to start thinking about some long-term stuff. I'll be doing some stuff in the off season too. A lot of times, we're start dissecting the draft. I also do video content over at RPO Football. So shout out to Leo. So that's kind of where you'll find all my stuff. And then I'm always on X. Probably, if you haven't muted me by now, I'm at Matt Monty.
Very nice. Well, Matt, we appreciate you reaching out and joining the show today. And hopefully you enjoyed listening, all those who are tuning in. Thanks so much for tuning in. And until next time.